breaking news. Everyone's talking about the hero Nice. After a rapid increase in popularity, he has announced plans to land a spot in the top 10 hero rankings.
Perfect. If that's what you want. Good luck.
Wait!
All right, my friends, we just got done watching To Be Hero X episode number 2, and this episode wasn't as good as episode 1. I thought that episode 1 made a big bang, and it was a good blend of really amazing animation with some 3D. Now, I know from a lot of you guys, I caught a lot of flack in the comments last week for saying that I thought the 3D was doo-doo. I'm sorry, I still think the same thing. A lot of people were comparison? Did I just stroke out? A lot of people were comparing this to Spider-Verse, but Spider-Verse is a drastically different type of art style. Now, when it comes to 3D animation, I want to be very clear. I don't think it's necessarily bad. I just don't like 3D animation. Like, I have watched a lot of Donghua, and some of it has been 3D, and I've explained to you guys last week, and I'll say it again. When it comes to 3D, the story has to be extremely good, just because I really have a really hard time getting over that barrier, because I just don't really like 3D animation. Now, again, like I said, if you were to put this in a hierarchy of excellent 3D animation to doo-doo animation, it's probably in the top, in the higher tier. I won't say top tier, but it's probably in the higher tier, right? But it doesn't mean that it's still an aesthetic that I really enjoy. I just simply don't. But that's out the window, because most 75% of this episode, if not 85%, was all 3D animation. Now, when it comes to episode 2 specifically, you know, there was a lot of things that occurred here. We have Nice, you know, who was basically like they try to get him and the girl closer to each other, and I instantly forgot what the F her name was. This episode, was her name Molly or something? I don't even know what her name was. I forget. But anyways, the girl, the blonde hair girl, they try to get Nice and her together, and they put them together in for like a month. When I say they, I mean the Joan, or I think her name's Joan or Juan or something like that. Which is the lady that is basically leading up all the marketing for Nice and everything. They try to get them together, and it looks like her name was Xiao. Her name was Xiao. We'll go with Xiao. And she had a hero name, but we'll go with Xiao. So they try to put Nice and Xiao together in for like about a month, and eventually, you know, she wants to break out of the system, and her teleportation abilities basically always take her back to Nice, which is her boyfriend, fiance, future husband, whatever. And that's the reason that happens, is because that's what the people want, and all their powers are derivative of what the people want, and that's how people gain their powers. Reciprocally, the fear and the scaring and the scare tactics and everything else, how villains become villains as well too. The main thing that this episode did was we ended on a twist last week with her being dead in the bed, and that basically ended up not being real. It was very weird how that happened. I would have rather have that scene not occurred whatsoever, because she obviously was not dead. It was just like a metaphor, or it was like a vision of something that could be, that was not, which is so stupid. So again, I just really didn't like the way that they handled that. But then we lead into this episode, and the main crux of this episode was Nice facing against a villain, which was his arch nemesis. And skipping up way ahead, it was him and Xiao coming up with an idea of, okay, well, to kill her off, let's have the arch nemesis come in, and then she'll die, which is exactly what ended up happening. And Nice, at a moment, thought that she legitly died, so he got really, heartfelt about it, which he was able to oversell her death, which I thought was really cool. I think the other guy ended up actually dying. He was dying from sadness, because him and Nice were best friends when they were much younger, and they came up with this idea to be, heroes together. What ended up happening is Nice became a hero, and the other guy became the villain or arch nemesis, and they kept fighting each other, but because of marketing, the way things that happen, they kept getting more and more distant, because like their fights ended up being less and less. So he wasn't able to see Nice, and he's like, eventually one day his responses stopped, and that's where he officially committed his suicide. And that's where, our actual main MC took over Nice's role and everything else. So I thought that was a really heartfelt, situation that occurred there. It was really sad because you could tell he really lost somebody that he cared about quite a bit. And he was kept in the dark the whole time too, which I thought was a really, really jerk move, especially because you have to imagine that Wan lady actually knew how close they were, but obviously didn't care because she has a job to do and she's prioritizing her job among everything else. So that was kind of the main theme. And then at the end of the episode, the guy who was like the Riddler type character ended up finding out Nice's true identity, and through some other means or mechanical or robotic something, he ended up becoming the God's Eye, which is like going to be a new villain, which is going to be the one terrorizing Nice, kind of like moving forward, which I thought was pretty cool too. But going back to what I said, I thought this episode was less polarizing than the first episode. I thought the storyline between him and the girl that he legitimately loved quite a bit was kind of too long-winded. I don't like how the RMC, quote unquote Nice, wasn't able to tell her his true feelings, because she was like, "Oh, what do you want to do?" And then there's an announcement behind him, and he's like, "Oh, the top 10 hero, blah 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 blah." And she's like, "Looks like you have your path," and he's like, "That's not what I want." He genuinely liked her quite a bit, and he was trying to make sure he made her happy, but in making her happy, he pushed her away. So I don't like how he wasn't able to actually be like legitimate about his feelings, to her. And will she ever know them? Maybe, maybe not. Probably not at this point. The story will probably just keep moving forward without him. So my main question, I guess, is like, okay, well, what's the storyline? Outside of, a God's Eye, outside of a new villain being created for RMC, like, what's the storyline? Is it just him deciding if he wants to be a hero? Is it him truly being enveloped and truly just falling into the hero's role and accepting that's who he is? Like, I am here kind of deal. Is it somewhere in between? Like, I don't know what the actual story is going to be. And that is where I get lost of like, oh, well, I don't know what I'm in for, but I do know when it actually decides to get animated and we actually have like legit animation, it's going to be dope. But what's the actual story kind of keeping me here? I guess that'll remain to be seen as we get into episode 3 and episode 4. And this is set up to be a 24 episode season. So we have a really long runway for them to kind of figure this out. So I'll keep faith in the studio. I'll keep faith in the show, and hopefully, it ends up being really, really good. So hopefully more characters will be introduced. Maybe he'll get a romantic, not option, but maybe he'll get like a romantic character to come in and maybe spice something up there. I guess that will remain to be seen. But let me know what you guys think about in the comments down below. I appreciate you guys, watching my videos. Let me know what you guys think about To Be Hero episode 2 specifically. And if you're familiar with the source, I'm not really sure on where this gets sourced from. I don't know if it gets sourced from a manhwa or what. But if you're not familiar, just let me know your guys' thoughts on how you guys are feeling so far with 2 episodes into this new show. All right, friends, I'm going to see you guys next week. Peace out.